Hi, I am Stephanie Hoi-Nga Wong. I am a parent coach and executive coach. I help parents to develop a deeper understanding about themselves so they can help themselves and their children to grow and flourish. I believe our past experiences can shape parenting. My ultimate vision is to break transgenerational cycles so whatever we experienced before won't be passed on to our children and our future generations. Today, I'm very excited to introduce my guest, Stella Leaburn. Stella is an executive headhunter, public speaker, and independent business owner from the UK. She has a 2-decade-long career working in C-suite human capital. She also has extensive links to the charity Health Public Service Recruitment Center. Her public speaking arrangements primarily focus on two things that she loves, which is elevating women in the workplace and mentoring the next generation. Stella is also a brand and image consultant. She works with professionals on their personal branding and corporate businesses to elevate their brand and online experience and presence. I met Stella a few weeks ago on LinkedIn around Mother's Day in the UK. One of her posts really caught my attention. She wrote about a lack of supportive parenting when she was growing up. She decided to put a break on the trauma she inherited so she can create the sort of home full of the type of parenting she wished she had had. Stella, thank you very much for coming on for this interview with me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure being here.
Great. Tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up for you in London, I believe. Is that right?
Yes. Well, I could take you a little bit further back away from London.
Sure.
I was born in Nigeria, in West Africa. My father passed away when I was about 4 or 5 years old. And I went on to live with my uncle in another city at the age of 5. So I never really saw my mother again from about 5 years old, or my siblings from about 5 years old. I think the next time I saw them again, I was over 30. Yes, because by the time I was 13, we moved to London. I moved to London with my uncle. Well, not my uncle, I moved in with another relative, my uncle's daughter and her family. And from the age of 13 and to 17, I lived with this couple and their children. However, there was a lot of abuse going on in the home and a lot of neglect in the sense that I didn't have shoes, to wear for sports. I only had one pair of shoes, and those were the shoes that I brought with me from Nigeria at the age of 13, 14. So obviously at that age, you're still growing, but those were the only shoes I had. So it was really horrible. And the sort of abuse that was going on in the house should not be happening to any child at all. And at that age, I used to run away quite a lot from their home to a family friend. And, but they would always take me back to the same house. And after running away so many times, because I had nowhere else to go, I had no one else to go to. So being brought back to the house, I sort of just gave up because I thought, there's no point running. There's nowhere else to go. So just stay here and put up with the abuse. But when I turned 17, I'd had enough. It was too much. And I remember it was sort of like maybe a day or two before I actually left the house. I was very certain that I didn't want the abuse to continue. And I remember because they had access to my passport. So I took my passport, and because the night in question that I left the house, I didn't want to leave without a form of identification. I had nowhere to go because I wasn't going to go back to the same relative that I kept running to. I wasn't going to go back to them anymore, but I had nowhere else to go but the park. So I thought, either I stay here in this house and then I won't be here the next day because it was just that unbearable, or I took my chances and I went out there on the street, me and the park bench for my bed. And so yes, I left the house at 17 with the intention of never returning, but with nowhere else to go. However, after walking around the streets of South London in the night, and crying because it was just, now what? So I went off to a friend's house, a classmate of mine, and prayed that she would open the door, which she did. I stayed at her place for a few days, but where I used to work part-time in a pharmaceutical company, I had a manager who saw me the next day after I ran away. And she was shocked that, she was asking me what was wrong, because I was literally just sobbing because, she was asking what was wrong. And I said to her, I can't go back to that house. If I go back there, I'd rather not be alive anymore. Yeah. And she never asked me, why don't you want to go back there? What is wrong? What's going on? She didn't ask. All I said was, I don't want to go back there. And she said, do you have somewhere to stay? And I said, well, I'm staying with a friend at the moment. And, but I'm looking to rent a place, but I don't have the money for the deposit. She asked me how much it was for the deposit. I told her, and immediately she brought her handbag and wrote a check.
Yeah. Wow.
Sorry.
I mean,
every time I think about that, it kind of takes me back. So she wrote a check for me, and I remember just looking at her and saying, I can't afford to pay you back. And she said, I didn't ask you to. Just to, it's hard to comprehend that the night before, I was, a day before, I was experiencing hell with people that were supposed to be related to me. And the next day, a total stranger that I'm not related to, she didn't know me from anywhere. She was just my manager, offering to pay a deposit for me to stay somewhere was just, you can just imagine the emotions was just a bit much.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, the rest, as I say, is history. I got the money, the check, paid for the deposit, and we went on to become really good friends. She was now my mentor. I kind of looked up to her as the big sister that I wish I had, I wish was mine. The mom I wish was mine. She was just everything that I wish was mine. Mother, best friend, everything. And then she became all of that for me. Unfortunately, she passed away some years ago now, but I never forgot what she did.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing. I can see it's difficult. It's difficult for you. And so fortunately, you had someone who was able to help you, without asking for anything back.
No.
Before we go a little bit further, excuse me, can I just ask you, it must be, at the age of 17, must be scary for you. Even before that, the whole experience must be quite, quite frightening for you. Can you just tell us a little bit about what was going through your mind? What was happening internally? How how do you deal with all those years of neglect and treatment?
Um, at that point, I just felt alone. I just felt completely alone. And it was really a sad period for me because I didn't feel, I mean, unlike today, there are organizations all over the place that you can go to get help. There was no such thing back then, none. I even remember reporting what was going on at school. And I remember this was in secondary school, and they said they were going to write home. I thought, I've just told you I'm going through hell, but you're going to send a letter to the people to check that what I said is true. What do you think is going to happen to me? What do you think they're going to say? They're not going to say, yes, we were doing what she said. No. So I remember just saying to the teacher, don't worry, it's okay, it's sorted now. There was no point because my life would be 10 times worse once you send that letter home. So there was no point. I might as well just keep up with the hell as it is than anymore. I just felt completely alone and with nowhere to go, no one to turn to. It was hard. As I said, I mean, I have a 22-year-old that I can't even imagine him trying to be out there today fending for himself. Never mind not having a mom, dad, siblings, nothing, nobody. So yes, it was a hard time for me. It was mentally challenging. It was hard to trust people. I was always hyper vigilant. I saw it's as if I saw danger everywhere. Everyone was not to be trusted because if I couldn't trust the people I call family, how can I trust a total stranger? But then, of course, having a total stranger pay my deposit again, it was just mind-boggling. It was a lot. It's how you're not related to me. You shouldn't be nice to me. They should be nice to me, but they're not. It was hard.
Yeah,
It was really hard that at the age of when I turned 20, I knew the way I felt was not right. I was angry. I was just angry and sad. So on the outside, to a lot of people, I was cherry. On the inside, it was hell. And I knew I needed help. So I took myself to a therapist that I privately paid for at the age of 20. And I had to do so many jobs just so that I can have enough for my rent, enough to get to work, enough to get to college, and enough to pay my therapist. I knew I needed help. But of course, I didn't have that sort of family support around me. So a therapist was the only other option that I knew was open to me at the time. And that's what I did to sort of help me manage the anger I felt and the lack of trust. I wanted to be able to trust people. I wanted to be relaxed with people because I just never felt that.
Yeah. I mean, at the age of 20, you're able to be able to afford therapists that time, and also even knowing that you need help and know how to find it. I think it's actually very very good for your age to have the understanding about yourself too.
Thank you. I mean, I had friends around me that had their normal home life, and I saw the way they reacted to certain things that I didn't react to them the same way. And I knew something wasn't right. I knew obviously what happened to me. I didn't have the exact words for what was going on in that house, but I just knew it wasn't right. Whatever it was, it's not right. It shouldn't have happened, shouldn't happen to anybody. And then, like I said, I had friends who were living what I thought was a normal life. They had parents, they could do things, they could easily say, oh, they're going to someone's house and they're not afraid of what could happen when they're there. Whilst for me, that was, really? You're going to sleep over at someone's house? How? So, and I thought, and they were like, no, it's okay. I thought, how can you trust people like that? I wanted to have that freedom. I could see it was mind freeing to be able to do certain, those sort of things. And I wanted that. I wanted to feel normal. And yes, it meant doing extra work, taking on overtime to pay for the therapy. But there were times when, yes, I may not have enough money for food, but the pain inside of me, it's like a knot inside of you that's just constant. And I wanted it to go. I wanted it to stop. I would rather not eat than not pay my therapist, because I kind of felt that weekly therapy session was so important to me. And over time, I saw the difference it made to how I related to people and how I reacted to things and situations, because, there were things I used to just trigger me. If someone said something, I just walk away. I don't want to talk about it. And it was just too much that the therapy was definitely worth it. And yes, you watch people on TV, they talk about therapy, but never people who look like me, because we don't do therapy. Therapy is not for Black folks, And I thought, so I never told anybody what I was doing because I didn't want them to tell me, oh, we don't do stuff like that. Or I didn't want anyone to tell me the worst thing ever, go to the priest or a pastor. And I thought, are you kidding me? I came out from a house of people who can sing in tongues and read the Bible any which way you want it. And they talk about, their faith so much. And yet, look at what they did. I thought, no. So I never told anybody. I just did my own thing. It wasn't 20 years later, actually, in the last 10 years, that's when I started opening up and talking about what happened. And a lot of the time people were like, how do you know this? How do you know that? Well, you just get this. And I'm thinking, maybe it's time I start opening up and letting them know how, and how I'm able to see certain things that other people can't see, and how I manage to deal with a lot of trials. And I opened up and I said I went to therapy, that I had, therapy sessions. At the beginning, no one believed me because they were like, why would you go to therapy? And I was like,
yeah.
Did the person you see here today that you think has got all her stuff together, it's thanks to therapy.
Yeah.
How do you think I can sit here and talk to you like a normal human being without, wanting to run and hide somewhere?
Yeah, sometimes these kind of things like therapy sessions, there's like a stigma attached to it. And yeah, we all need help, different kind of help.
We all do.
Yeah. So so you talk a little bit about how your past experience affects you, and then eventually what happened, like you had kids, and I read how you really knew that you didn't want whatever happened in the past to affect your parenting. Just tell us a little bit about that. How does that affect how you treat your own children?
Okay. I knew long before even the thought of children ever factored in my mind that I wanted to be a different kind of parent than what I saw growing up. And obviously, for me to do that, I needed to have my stuff together. I needed to know me better and have certain things in place. I wanted a home of my own. So at 21, I bought my first property. Again, that's just, I guess, the motivation behind that is I have my own space. No one can come in. It's just me unless I allow someone else in. So I had my own place, I had a job, I wanted to be financially dependent on myself.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, if I ever had any children, because one of the reasons why I left my mother, my birth mother, was because my father passed away. My mother is not learned, and she couldn't afford to look after 6 children. So that was one of the reasons. And I thought, okay, I need to make sure I have my finances in order. I have a roof over my head, that I can protect my kids, all those basic things that I felt got me into the situation that I was in as a child. And so I had all of those. And again, more therapy to prepare me for when I do decide to have children. How will I deal with, I didn't want to be the helicopter mom that allowed the children to go to anywhere, didn't allow them out of the house, didn't trust anybody. I didn't want that, because I thought that will have a different effect on the children. So everything that scared me, I had things in place. I'll give you an example. Because people are always surprised, oh my God, you let your children go sleepover? I said, yes. I never did sleepover, but I let my children go sleepover.
Yeah. It must be difficult for you to let them.
Oh my goodness. Yes, it was hard, but I had to put things in place to help me cope whilst they were away. And then also the key thing was I needed to empower my children and give them the confidence that whatever they say to me is gospel. I will always believe them. If anyone tried anything with them that they don't like, they don't want, they are welcome to say no. If they don't listen, they need to report, tell somebody, an adult that is around. There were just key things that I, made sure my children knew. Going to someone else's home, don't go to anyone's parents' rooms, or if they have adult siblings, do not go in there with them. If if your friend is not there with you, if you guys, you know what I mean? It was just, I had to put things in place. And then also there was like key safe words that I have with my children. Something like the colored socks, or their favorite socks. So if ever they were at a sleepover and they didn't want to be there for whatever reason, they didn't have to come on the phone and say, Mom, I want to leave, because that makes them feel awkward, saying that in front of people, which was something, again, that happened to me. I remember a relative from Nigeria calling and asking, how are you? Are they treating you okay? The people in question were sat right in front of me. What did you think I was going to say?
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
So of course I said, yes, I'm fine. So I always make sure that those sort of conversations I can still have with my children when they're away from me, without them feeling awkward and the other people not understanding what's going on either. You haven't empowered them and equipped them with the tools to be able to stand up for themselves. And I wanted to do that. I wanted my children, I didn't want them to be quiet. If anything is wrong, speak, open your mouth, say something, tell somebody, tell me. I will always believe you. That was key. Because for me, my fear was, I never told anybody really what was going on, because I was afraid no one would believe me.
Yeah.
So I made a point for my children and any young person around me, I will always believe you. I obviously let them know that they are loved, and I will always fight for them. And I guess I demonstrated that from, when they come to me, obviously children have arguments with each other. And when they do, we go through what happened, instead of, it's not just a case of, oh, I just believe you. I'm like, okay, talk me through it. What happened? And then sometimes by the time they start talking and telling you what happened, it's like, oh, actually, it's no big deal. and then, that kind of situation. And then it's like, oh, you sure? And they're like, yeah, I'm fine now. I'm fine. So
Yeah.
sometimes I just want to get it out and have someone listen to their concerns. And I wanted them to feel they could come to me with anything. No topic is too big for the table. Bring it. We'll talk about it. No matter what it is, we will talk about it. I have no shame, no shame whatsoever. I mean, my 22-year-old, he gets embarrassed when I, have certain conversations with him, and he's like, "Oh, Mom, I can't even look at you right now." And I'm like, "Okay, you hear me?" Yeah, yes, I've heard you, But he also appreciates it because, I mean, he's much older than her, so he's an adult now. And he says to me, "Mom, I'm glad you're different. I'm glad you're not like other moms, because I see what some of my friends, how unhappy they are with the situations in their homes. They can't talk to their parents the way I can talk to you. The things that I can talk to you about, you're not even fazed. You're not, it's okay. And you don't pressure us that we have to do this, we have to do that. There's none of that. I will encourage you. I will try and steer you, because that's what the job of a parent is. I will try and steer you in the right direction, but I wouldn't stand over your head and say, this is what you have to do. You're going to be a doctor and that's it, nothing else. No, I wouldn't do that. And I don't do that. To the point, I don't need to do that because my children are doing okay. My daughter's an A-star student, learning another language. She's an A-star student in a language that is not her first language. Right. So, and that there's no need for me to be that kind of a parent for the children to want to do good. She wants to do well. To the point that I sometimes say to her, okay, you can put the books down now. She's like, yeah, but I've got this coming up, and she wants to, and she's like, I really need to upgrade my, improve on my grades. And I'm like, okay, is there anything I can help you with? What do you need me to do to help you to relax, to help you to do better, anything? Just tell me what you need me to do as your mom to help you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's interesting you said that, because I mean, I can see, like you say, a lot of parents would push and say you need to do this or that in order to get better grade, but you didn't have to push your kids to do that. They do it themselves. Is it because of their personality, you think, and what is it? Is it because
I
of
think
how
it's
you...
the freedom. Obviously they feel they want to do good, and they want to do better for themselves. Because I always say to them, don't do anything just to please me. When my daughter comes home, oh, she got a B, oh my God. And I said, stop. Did you give it your best shot? Yes. Or sometimes she probably go, well, maybe I could have read a little bit more. And I'm like, okay, well, what you're going to do going forward, if you want to improve on this, I guess I'll have to put some reading time in to revise a bit more. Okay. And that's it. I'm like, don't worry about it. Don't sweat it. B is not the end of the world. Okay. And that's it. And then she moves on. And then, yes, the next time she does, she has her planner. She has alarm clocks for her to study, break time. So she wants to, some days it's like, okay, she just wants to sit down and watch football. We sit down and watch football. I think it's the freedom. It's the, not having to worry that, oh my God, you're not pleasing me. I said, please you. As long as whatever you do, you are happy with the effort you have put into the work, I'm okay with it. Are you okay with it? You okay with it? We're good. Okay. I think that makes a difference, as opposed to hovering over the children and insisting, yes, they will do what you want them to do, but will they be happy about it?
So you're thinking like giving them the freedom and letting them to allowing them to trust whatever they like, they do it, and you through encouragement.
Yes, absolutely.
And just believing in themselves. It sounds like believing in themselves. They feel like they have the freedom to do what
that's where self-esteem comes from, isn't it? It's like belief in yourself and knowing what you're capable of doing, and knowing someone thinks this highly of you. Someone thinks you have what it takes to do it. That's where self-esteem comes from. I've had to work on mine because I never had anyone encourage me or anyone tell me I could do anything. I was told I couldn't do anything. But with them, I'm like, you can do whatever you set your mind to do. You know, my son would say, oh, Mama can't do this. And I'm like, do you remember when you were 7 and you told me you were going to stop doing this? And you did? And he goes, you're never going to let me. I'm like, no, what that showed me about you was that whatever you put your mind to do, you can do it.
It's interesting. Yeah. You're giving them the safety, like you help them to feel safe, so you can do experiment or do whatever, try whatever they like, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But you have to, in order to do that, you have to do that for yourself too, right? Otherwise, not.
I mean, they
don't have that capacity or the trust to let them to try out whatever they need.
I mean, they need to see you doing certain things for yourself as well. If they can
tell us about that.
Yeah, because obviously my children see me reading. If I'm not reading, I'm listening to podcasts, TED Talk, or audiobooks. And, you know, I'm doing, you know, I'm just forever learning. I've got coaches that I've worked with over the years, and them seeing that, I mean, it shows that I'm on a journey of forever improving myself and being better. And where I don't have the skills and the tools, I get professionals that do. Teach me how, and I will learn. I'm a coach, I'm also a student. You can never stop learning. And as long as your children see you learning, and there are times when I've got it wrong, and, you know, my kids will say, Mom, you shouldn't have done that. Or, you know, maybe next time just do this way instead, it's better. I know in your time it was that way, but today maybe you could do this. And I'm like, you know what? I hear you. Thank you. Noted. It won't happen again. So it's that the fact that they have I would never have dared to tell any adult when I was growing up, this is how you treat children. And what? Never. It was just like, you see, you shut up. That's it. But my children, they have the freedom. Tell me. If I'm not getting it right, tell me. Especially if it's affecting you. You have to tell me, because otherwise I don't know. And obviously now they're at the age, obviously my son knows about what happened. My daughter a little bit, not too much, but she gets, she's aware. And, you know, and I've said to them, I don't want that life for you. I want you to be able to talk to me. So whatever, you know, if I'm doing something wrong, tell me, correct me. It's okay.
It's great that how as painful as your past experiences were, actually have, you know, you actually can become a role model for your kids, like knowing what happened. You don't want that to repeat that, and to give that to pass on to your children. That is, in a way, is a gift for them. But yeah, I can imagine it's very painful for you. I'm so glad that, you know, they have a mother who's self-reflective and be able to like acknowledge what happened and not pass it on to the next generation. Now, how much has your past might have affected perhaps your work? It's not just at home, and you're able to transform that.
Okay. Work-wise, I guess I've always been, considering what happened, yes, I've always been interested in knowing what goes on in people's minds. You know, why do people do what they do? Why are there good people and not so good people? What, you know, makes people who they are? And as much as I like to say sometimes to people that I'm not a people person, I don't like people, actually, realistically, every job I've ever done involves people. In one way or another, I have contact with people. But then, of course, over the years, I've kind of grown into, the more I've grown into myself, I understand better how some people's minds work. I'm not a professional in that, you know, in that respect. I'm not a scientist, but I read quite a lot of self-help books, science books, to get ideas and knowledge and information on the human mind and how to maneuver life and circumstances and things as they happen. How do you manage your emotions? How do you know, manage what you say and the thoughts in your head? More than anything, the thoughts are very important, because what you think is what comes out of your mouth, is what comes out of your actions. So for me, I've always been very mindful and worked with a lot of professional people to help me unlearn a lot of the stuff that I learned as a child and relearn new things that will hopefully help me to be a better adult, a better headhunter, and a better brand lifestyle coach, and a better mom.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Now, is there anything you want to say that I didn't cover at all?
Not really. I mean, I think we covered quite a bit. I just want to say to anyone obviously watching this and or listening to this, if you're ever in any situation, find someone that you can talk to. You're never alone. There's always someone out there that will believe you. You are worthy of love. You deserve to feel safe wherever you are. So don't ever feel as though you are alone, because even in the 21st century, I know there are still similar, you know, atrocities going on out there that happened to me. They're still happening, but I just want people to know that they're not alone. They can speak to someone. You will not be judged. I certainly won't judge you. And I will believe you no matter what. And just, you know, stay strong, because no one else can tell your story but you. Had I gone back to that house at 17, I won't be here today. My story would have been told very differently by the people who perpetrated the abuse on me. They would have told the story, my story, their way, the way that suited them. But I didn't want that. I knew one day I wanted to be the one to tell my story and let people know what happened. And hopefully it will motivate somebody else who's in a similar situation to, you know, be able to walk away from that and find safety.
Wow, thank you so much, Stella. You're very courageous and you're a real role model and inspiring for me, and I'm sure a lot of people will watch this.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And yeah, your children are really blessed to have you as their mother too. So
I will be sure, this is recorded, right? I will be sure to play to them. I know they do. They do. My son tells me, and so does the little one here as well. They do. And that means a lot to me. It means I'm doing something well. And I go with their lead. So what they tell me, if they say, you're doing okay, mom. And sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough. I'm not spending enough time. They're like, no, mom, you're okay. You do more than enough.
Yeah.
So, my son encourages me, mom, you need to do you. You need to keep doing you. You're doing great. And I'm like, well, I feel like I'm not spending. No, mom, you're good. You're good.
Oh, that's
And
beautiful.
that means a lot to me. So if
You
he's
inspire each other.
gonna be watching this anyway, because he's aware that I'm doing this, so he's gonna be like, yeah, just so he knows, those words mean a lot to me.
Wow, that's such beautiful relationship. Thank you so much for sharing.